Gang, for over a year now, I've been talking about True Hemp Science full spectrum CBD oils and how they've reduced my anxiety and helped me get better sleep without waking up feeling foggy and confused. I've also talked about the full spectrum CBD bombs that relieved my hand pain last year and made playing piano and guitar much easier. Well, gang, today I'm going to tell you about True Hemp Science organic gummies made with full spectrum hemp oil that are available now. They come in two different gauges. There are 50 milligram ones that have 50 milligrams of CBD and 1.5 milligrams of THC. Then there are ones that are 100 milligrams of CBD and 5 milligrams of THC. Absolutely delicious lemon lime / orange flavors and also watermelon black cherry flavors. Super, super delicious. Now, they also have a complete line of full spectrum CBD products, including oils, tinctures, skincare lotions, sports rubs, chocolates, gummies, all kinds of stuff. Well, gang, How Did I Get Here has teamed up with True Hemp Science to bring you a very special offer that benefits all of us. Spend $100 or more at truehempscience.com and you will get a free gift. Just enter the code HDIGH at checkout. There's a little code placed there for you to enter it, HDIGH, and you will get a free gift with purchase. That's right. Go to truehempscience.com and balance your body and mind with True Hemp Science. Let's get down.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? And now here are your hosts,
Hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host. Welcome to the show. I hope you guys have all had a good week so far. I've had a good week so far. I'm actually doing this intro on Wednesday because I'm leaving town on Thursday for a couple of days. And I wanted to make sure that I got this all done. Gang, I have a really, really exciting update on the air fryer front. My aunts sent me an air fryer. I got it last night. Yeah, I went outside to walk Rosie, opened the door. There was an air fryer at my door. So now I'm in the air fryer game. I haven't made anything yet because I'd already eaten dinner by the time I opened the door and saw the air fryer last night. So after Skyrocket rehearsal today, I'm going to go to the grocery store. I'm going to grab a couple things. I'm going to make an air fryer dinner. I think I'm going to make Brussels sprouts, chicken. I might make some green beans. Outside of the air fryer, I might make some smashed potatoes. But I'm super stoked. I want to thank my aunts. My Aunt Olga sent it to me. Sorry, I'm thanking all my aunts like they all sent it to me. But my Aunt Olga sent it to me, and I want to thank her for it because I'm fascinated when I'm at my grandma's house the last couple of weekends. If you listen to the show, all I've done is do air fryer shit with my Aunt Christina. So anyway, I want to thank Olga for the air fryer. I'm in the air fryer game. If I was going to say, I was talking to my sister last night, and I was like, yeah, I just got this air fryer. I set it up. I sent her a picture, and she was like, man, I bet you're going to go crazy with it. And I was like, yeah, if you don't want to see air fryer stories on Instagram from me, unfollow me now, baby. Unfollow me now. Hey, man, I am about to go to Skyrocket rehearsal, but I did want to let you guys know that if you're listening to this show the day that it comes out, Friday, April 7th, Skyrocket will be in Houston. We are playing tonight at Last Concert Cafe in downtown Houston. Always a great show there. I'm not joking. Fantastic outside venue. Early start time tonight, 8:30. I guess since it's downtown and people are starting to move into downtowns and this whole like downtown condo culture is happening. It's happening here in Austin too. You know, they complain and all the things that they move downtown for, like the outside concerts and all that shit. They start bitching about it once they live there because you don't want a fucking show every night going until midnight or 2 in the morning. So everything has to end a little early now, but it starts a little early. So tonight, Friday, April 7th, Last Concert Cafe, downtown Houston. Skyrocket, always a good time. Go to skyrockettheband.com to get tickets and see and find out more about Skyrocket if you don't know. Gang, I have a great show for you guys today. Singer, songwriter, author Mary Lee Kortes is my guest on the show today. Now, she has a brand new album, a concept album. It's insane. I'll tell you all about it in just a second, but it is called Will Anybody Know That I Was Here? The Songs of Beulah Rowley. Now, this album is coming out exclusively on Record Store Days. It is a Record Store Day exclusive. That's April 22nd. You'll be able to get it on vinyl at record stores. Now, streaming services will not have the whole record until October, but if you do want to hear, there are 2 singles out. You will hear one of them on the show today. The singles are Green Sand and Born a Happy Girl. Fantastic songs. This is an amazing album. Now, this album was produced by legendary producer and arranger Hal Wilner, who worked with people like Lou Reed, Lucinda Williams, Allen Ginsberg, so many people. And this was like the last single artist album that he produced before his death in 2020. Look up Hal Wilner. It's insane. Like all of the work that he's done is crazy. And it's insane that Mary Lee Kortes got this guy to do this record. Now, Mary Lee Kortes has been making music for over 25 years with her own band, but she started out as a songwriter. A songwriter is writing hits for like Amy Grant, Everywhere I Go from 1985. She also wrote a couple of songs for the Pointer Sisters, and then started a band called Mary Lee's Corvette. She's released a bunch of albums under that name. She made one record that was Blood on the Tracks, Bob Dylan's record, Track for Track. We talk about that. She also wrote a book about Bob Dylan called Dreaming of Dylan, 115 Dreams About Bob. Great story. Great story, and she's got all these great people on this new record. Will anybody know that I was here? The Songs of Beulah Riley. Now, let me tell you, this record, Will Anybody Know That I Was Here? The Songs of Beulah Riley is a musical exploration of Dust Bowl era regional singer-songwriter Beulah Riley, a character created by Kortes whose story remains elusive and tragic. But there is like a story within the story. So the story goes, at just 21, I'm going to read this from the thing. At just 21 years old, Beulah died in a house fire with her husband and her infant daughter. But her written songs survived and would be passed down over generations until they were discovered by Kortes in her childhood, or so the story goes. Marrying haunting compositions true to the style of early 20th century folk music with lyrics both timely and timeless, the album meets listeners in a present era of tumult and uncertainty, one not at all dissimilar from that of its protagonist. Now that's the story there. Insane, right? So she presented this record or this idea and the demos of it to Hal Wilner, and he was like, man, that's crazy. Let's make this record. But she had the idea to do the record in 2006 and has been working on and making this record since that time. It's finally coming out. It is such a labor of love and such an amazing endeavor. You can find Mary Lee Kortes at maryleekortes.com. I'll put links to her and all the things. Go check out her band, Mary Lee's Corvette. Go check out these singles, Green Sand and Born a Happy Girl. Born a Happy Girl, you'll hear it right now on the show. It sounds like it's from the era of the Dust Bowl. What a fantastic conversation. I really, 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 really enjoyed talking to Mary Lee Kortes. What a fantastic talent. What a great, great person. She actually wrote me and we connected right away. Now we're on email together, so I guess we're friends. So this is me and my friend, the incredibly talented Mary Lee Kortes. Let's get down.
I was born a happy girl into an unhappy world. I was born a happy girl, hallelujah. I gathered up the sins of God, tossed them on the family plot with a whistle and a nod, hallelujah.
Is that why you went with Mary Lee's Corvette? Because my last name's Gowdy, and that's Goudie, and it is like destroyed everywhere.
Right.
And
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are in the misunderstood last names club together. That's not really why I went with a band name. I don't know if you want me to get into that now or not. But anyway, quickly, it was just, I felt like I really liked how my band was influencing my songs.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Song. And I was looking for a band name, and the best I could come up with was the Lily Guild. I liked that. but nobody else liked it. Maybe its time is coming. I don't know. Anyway,
that sounds like the band that plays the ASCAP stage at 2 p.m. at the Lilith Fair. That's what I would say.
right. It was a different time and different sensibility when I had that idea. But I got one of these things in the mail. This is in the 90s. One of those sweepstakes things in the mail.
Yeah.
And it said, Mary Lee Kortes, you have won $75,000 or a free Corvette. And then it had 3 little pictures of a red, black, and blue Corvette. And underneath each one, it said Mary Lee's Corvette, Mary Lee's Corvette, Mary Lee's Corvette.
Oh, wow.
And my husband, Eric Amble, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
I got familiar with him. Yeah.
Yeah. He said, there's your band name. So I made, this is back when we made flyers and sent them out for gigs.
Yeah.
So I cut them out and I pasted up a little flyer, went to Kinko's and it just said Mary Lee's Corvette. And everybody knew who it was because they had my picture and most of my name. But it's so close to my last name that it gets confusing.
Yeah. Let me ask you this one other question, because just last night I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. Has Chevrolet ever come to you and been like, "Hey man, look out"? No. Okay, because I have a friend that had a band called Godzilla Motor Company, and he had to change the spelling of Godzilla because the Godzilla people came after him, and he changed it to GAHD as opposed to GOD.
Well, Corvette's also a noun. Just a regular old noun. It's a battleship. It's a type of battleship.
Oh, I didn't know that. I just thought it was a Corvette. All right.
So I thought about that because when I was concerned about it. But then also I thought, well, what about the Mavericks? There's a car called a Maverick.
Yeah, that's true.
Blah, blah, blah. But
all right, Mary Lee, I don't even know what to say about you and this amazing album. I really don't.
That's really enough right there.
I just don't. I'm floored by your songwriting. I was sent this thing. Your publicist knows, obviously you're a weirdo. And he sent this thing. He's like, I really think you're going to like her. And when he wrote that, when I listened to it and I went and read all your stuff and I just kind of started going through your life, I was like, yeah, I'm going to love it. Yeah, this is totally my kind of people.
Makes me so happy.
Yeah.
So happy.
What, another thing that can't not be said at the top of this is that you worked with the late great Hal Willner. I watched the video that you have on YouTube where you two are talking about the record, I guess when you were doing the fundraising for it.
Right.
What a magical person to get to share that with.
I feel so incredibly lucky, especially now. I've always felt lucky to be getting and have gotten that experience, and the experience itself was so magical and wonderful. Just wonderful. Yeah. He's
a guy that I'd heard the name, but I didn't know I didn't have any attachment to that name. And when he passed away, I mean, it was a big deal. And I was like, man, who is this guy? And I went oh my God, this guy's been in my life and in my brain and in the fabric of who I am almost my whole life.
I didn't know it.
I didn't know it. Yeah. What amazing. How did you guys get together to do this?
A manager I was working with at the time just thought Hal would really like this project because I created this quite a while ago. And some of the songs were written a long time ago, some much more recently, some right before recording, actually, the record with him. And so I don't know if you've seen the whole story, the biography of Beulah Rowley that I wrote.
I did.
But, oh, great. Okay. So my manager gave that to Hal along with, I'd made these very interesting home demos all by myself and got this all to Hal, and Hal said he'd love to meet with me. So we met one day and he said to me how much he loved the project. And then he said, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, me neither.
And I thought, Hal Willner, seen a lot of things, right?
Yeah. Including
in his days of hallucinogenic indulgence. He's seen a lot of things. So for him to say to me, he's never seen anything like something I created, I was just floored.
Right. I'm going to take that back there was a project in the early 90s here. I live in Austin, and I don't want to say Joe Harvey Allen. Do you know who that is? Terry Allen's wife. You know Terry Allen, the artist and songwriter?
Yeah.
But it's different. I think because you created Beulah, right?
Right.
And I think that she actually found a prostitute from the 1920s diary at like a Goodwill in like Lubbock or something, and she kind of wrote. She did. It was different, but it was similar in philosophy.
Right.
Yeah.
You found an artifact.
Right. Right.
Right. Proof of a representation of a life.
Right.
That was deserving of more celebration.
Right. And that goes right down to the title, the way that you did it. Will anybody know that I was here? The songs of Beulah Riley, and that is that's a thing. Like you think, I'm an artist as well, and we definitely are hoping that, and people will remember that we were here at some point. And what made you think of that concept, like of being forgotten or trying to not be forgotten? Or
I think, as you were sort of saying, as artists, we want to be heard, and we don't generally set out to be heard by 5 people.
Right.
We would like it to be more than 5 people.
Yeah.
although lately I'm changing my attitude and saying, what's wrong with a small audience? I'm not going to let anyone else in. No, you have not been selected.
Yeah.
But the way this came about is I was on tour in the UK, and I don't know, 2006 or so, and I was in London, and I have a friend I always stay with there, and I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my next album, and I knew that I didn't want it to be just a collection of songs, and I do other kinds of writing, and I wanted to incorporate some other kind of writing, but I didn't know what that meant. So I went to sleep that night with these thoughts. And I woke up in the morning with this person in my head named Beulah Rowley. Beulah happens to be a name on my paternal grandfather's sister was named Beulah, and my maternal grandmother's maiden name was Rowley. So she just popped in my head. Beulah Rowley, Depression era singer-songwriter, and regionally known in the Midwest. And I immediately started writing the song "Born a Happy Girl." These things just started popping out of me. So I finished the tour, went home, wrote her biography, and then began to write this string of songs.
Right.
So Beulah's story is that she achieved some degree of renown, but died before she got any more famous. And these songs were lost to the world. And they survived this tragic house fire that killed Beulah. They survived in this wrought iron piano bench that made its way through the decades, through flea markets and families, till it landed in mine. And I discovered these songs. So, will anybody know that I was here? I mean, we all want to be heard, right? And I think that one of my hopes, I think, in unconscious maybe, was thinking about, well, you may be getting heard even if you don't know it.
Right.
Like I've had some experiences with some of my songs. I wrote a song called "Why Don't You Leave Him" on the True Lovers of Adventure album. It's about domestic violence. And somebody contacted me through my website saying that she'd heard that song. The chorus is, "Why don't you leave him? Why don't you leave him?" He said he'd kill me, and I believe him. So she sent me this email saying, "I heard your song," and immediately called my brother to come over with his van and move me out of my house because she was in an abusive relationship. Now, she could have not written me, and maybe there are other people who didn't write me. Right. I may never have known that.
Right.
So I guess the hope is for people whose audiences hover around between 5 and 500, or maybe even 5,000. Maybe more people actually are hearing us and being moved by our music.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. It did take a long time for you. So you came up with that concept in 2006, and from then on, just been working on that.
Yeah, it took me a long time to figure out how to record it.
Yeah.
I sort of stopped touring. I went to work at the UN for a while. I just wanted to get away from everything. And but I was always working on this project, and I did do some performances in 2012, which is before Hal. That's before Hal and I met. And so I've been working on it. I've been working on it for a long time. But after Hal and I made the album, I'd done all my outreach for the fundraising,
right?
And couldn't really. Everybody who I knew who wanted the record had it, although it was never officially released.
Right.
So now I have this opportunity. So here we are with vinyl, double vinyl.
Amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
Like Beulah's songs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I'm not going to let it go that you worked at the UN, but I want to stay on the album for a minute because that just blew my mind a little bit.
Okay.
I was looking at the credits. Oh, wait. The thing I was going to say was I'm glad to hear that Born a Happy Girl was the first song that you wrote in it, because it sounds like it was, because it's so authentically, like it really, like the melody, that kind of melody takes you. What is it about that takes you right back to that time of like?
I have no idea.
It sounds like that time. It's amazing.
Yeah. I guess I'd listened to enough music, or I'd somehow it seeped into my self.
Yeah.
I grew up in a musical family.
Was there like traditional music being played in your house?
Well, it was really not really traditional, actually. My grandmother was a great piano player. And she played the organ also. So she was a great keyboard player. And I spent a lot of time with her. And when I was little, she would play a lot of songs from the classic American songbook, Gershwin and
sure.
Cole Porter and all that stuff. But that's not, I don't think there's any banjo in that stuff.
No, but you know what's funny, as a songwriter, you definitely, I'm trying to figure out a way to word this, but you have a strong background in your writing. You know what I mean? Like, you're a person that's standing on a pretty strong foundation as a songwriter. Like, you understand not only the art of it, but you have a great understanding of the craft of what makes a song move and flow.
Well, thank you. I was a writer from, as a kid, I would just write poems and stories all the time, and make little books. So I've always loved words, just loved it. And music came very naturally to me. So I really appreciate what you said, but I think there was a review, John Pirelli said that my songs were so, what do you say? They're so methodically written, they sound completely natural.
Right. Yeah. I saw that.
And I was like, oh my God, I wasn't methodical at all. At least not consciously. I really write from I go from feeling.
Yeah.
And it works out.
I believe really strongly in that. And I mean, I'm sure we're not that far apart in age that I feel like the radio, some of us got it, and perfect songs from Be My Baby to Love Will Keep Us Together, perfectly crafted fucking songs,
Yes.
The
exactly.
Brill House
Those
songs that are in our genes. Right. Yeah. So then when we become songwriters, somehow we've connected with that craft that from the get-go we're writing good songs. You know what I mean?
Good point.
Yeah.
And the craft and structure and all that stuff is in our nervous system already.
Right.
And you're right that we were going to songwriting class every day. We just didn't know it.
All day long. Yeah.
Right. Listen to the radio. We were Academy of Songwriting.
Yeah, and memorizing it. You know, we didn't have like iPods and shit. Like, I mean, I didn't have like the Walkman didn't come out till I was already like 11. So
Right.
You know, I was always walking around singing those songs. So we were memorizing them. It was part of our, DNA.
Right.
Yeah.
So we ended up instinctively knowing
Yeah.
what to do.
So on this album, you and I have a guy that we both played with,
Who's that?
Conrad Meisner.
You know Conrad?
Yeah, like
we have a few gigs coming up.
30 years ago or something. He played with when he lived here. Yeah, I wrote him on Instagram when I saw him credited on there, and I was just like, wow, what a nice surprise. What a great drummer he's become. What a joy it was to listen to. Like, I went back and listened to the album again, and I was just like, Conrad, man, what a great pocket. What an amazing feel.
Phenomenal. And his he plays music on the drums.
He does play music on the drums. Yeah, man.
That's how Eric describes him. Yeah.
And I was like, a dude like Sean Pelton is doing the percussion and Conrad's on the drums. That's pretty flattering. I mean,
yeah.
Pelton's an animal. Yeah. He's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. He's please tell him I said hi. I don't.
I shall.
I hope he gets my message. I had to request his friendship and everything. I felt weird. You also had Sean. How do you know Conrad? How did you guys get together? He's the drummer for the Kortes as well.
Oh yes, we've been playing together for a really long time now. Because when I did my first Blood on the Tracks tour,
okay, yeah,
I had to. You know about the Blood on the Tracks thing?
I do. Yeah,
yeah. So I went on tour for that, and he was recommended to me. That was my first tour. I'd never toured with a drummer, bass and drums. So my regular drummer for shows, who was Graham Hawthorne, couldn't go. And so I just started asking around, and I'm not sure who recommended him, but there you go. We connected. Yeah. I remember our first rehearsal.
That's amazing. Yeah, I haven't seen that guy in like 20-something years. I don't even know. I might have seen him when I played in New York a few times, but I can't remember if I saw him then or not.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, that was great to see. And also, well, obviously, Sean Pelton, how do you know him? He's always running around. Like, whenever I'm there, he's like, you got to get a beer, you come in, and he's like playing drums with whatever band's in there.
Exactly. Yeah. He played with me. So he played on my first record.
Oh, that's cool.
So we were just in the same circle, and he played with me live a bunch of times and played on, part of my first record. Yeah.
Did you know this dude, James Rotundi? Rodo?
Yes, I know him.
Yeah, he moved to Nashville recently. I figured that's that's not how I know him, but I ran into Pelton again because he was playing with him. But I figured like New York's like a small little family music scene. It's a lot smaller than people would think it is.
Yes, I agree. When I was growing up, I used to notice like, how do these like famous musicians know each other? What are the odds? That seems really crazy. Right. But then as I got into it, we play together.
Yeah. And everything's so like you end up playing with so many people, like, how random is it that some dude in Austin you're doing a podcast with that plays music also played with Conrad? You know what I mean?
I love it. Yeah.
And now you also had Joe Jackson on there. Man, what a treat.
Yeah. Joe. I love Joe. I toured with him all across the U.S. and Europe. And we became friendly, and he loves this project. And so I asked him, just to play on some of the demos, and he was happy to.
Joe Jackson playing on your demos. That's amazing.
Yeah. Right?
That's just awesome. That's it. That's literally one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I do Joe, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so when I did the real record, obviously I wanted him on it. So there you go. There he is on Green Sand. Yeah.
So you are still married?
I'm still married.
Congratulations. Wow,
Thank you.
You guys been together a long time, huh?
Very long. Yeah.
Yeah. There's another guy you sang on a Freddie Johnston record, and he lived here for a while. I used to see him around all the time.
He's lived almost everywhere for a while. Too.
Yeah. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, I found 4 tracks on Never Home. That was one of the most exciting creative experiences I ever had. You know, Danny Korchmar produced that. So we were in the studio. Actually, Freddie I think he was just planning on having me on 2 songs, and Amy Mann was going to be on these other 2 songs, but I think, if I'm remembering right, but then she couldn't come. So they said, well, just come out again tomorrow and sing on the other 2 songs. And it was so thrilling. And Danny had a real appreciation for my voice. He heard the different qualities in it.
Yeah.
And he heard some bluegrass and some pop. And I'm such a fan of Freddie.
Yeah, me
I'm a
too.
Freddie fanatic. You know.
Phenomenal songwriter.
Oh my God. And I love his voice. Love the way he sings his songs.
Yeah. So real quick before we go back into your whole life, when the record comes out, you're going out on the road?
I have some shows. I don't have an official tour. I'm hoping to do that more towards the fall because this is a Record Store Day exclusive.
Oh, cool.
And so it's only available in stores for 6 months. But when, so like in October, I'll be able to sell it at gigs.
But is it going to come out? It's going to come out on streaming services on the 15th.
In October, right.
Oh, in
6 months.
October? Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the 2 singles, they gave me the okay to release 2 digital singles.
Okay. I didn't know that.
In October. Yeah.
Okay. So I need to remember that. Well, that's it, man. People are going to have to buy that vinyl. Is that how you listen to? Do you listen to vinyl?
I listen to everything. Yeah. I do have a turntable.
I love listening to music on vinyl. It's a good time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you run into like the long line? Like, have you been waiting like a year to have it pressed? Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
A lot of things, but yeah.
I got so lucky. My manufacturer said, because this just all came up like the end of June, early July, to do vinyl. I was thinking I wanted to do vinyl. And Eric and I said, well, let's just press it up ourselves. But I contributed a track to a Pete Ham tribute album that's going to be coming out sometime this year. This
From
independent label in Florida. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like Shelby Lynn is on it, the Mavericks. So it's, really good company. And the label liked our track, the one that Eric and I did together, so much it's going to be first. So I'm feeling
Killer.
great.
What song did you do?
It was never released. It's called No More. There's a demo on YouTube of it. But,
like Beulah.
Pete Ham. I know. Right? There's hope. Hope for us all.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's a connection. But anyway, so I told this guy, his name's Rich Uloa from this label, YNT Music in Miami. You want to check out my project, Beulah Raleigh. I'm going to put it out on vinyl. And he said, you should submit it for Record Store Day.
Well, this is amazing. I mean, that's I hope that this all works out because that's a new way to, like, there's always these new and creative ways that people are thinking of releasing music, and you're actually releasing the physical thing for 6 months before people can actually listen to it on their phone or something, you know?
Right.
Which is really cool.
Right. Well, it's like the way everything used to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to buy the record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when Beulah was around.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, like when Beulah was around.
Beulah was around.
Exactly.
There were only records.
So where you're from the Midwest? You're from Michigan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Portland.
Portland, Michigan.
Hmm.
Is that a small town?
Yes,
Yeah.
quite.
And your family is musical, and you had music there in the house. You had your grandma playing organ and piano, and
Right. My parents weren't really musical, but yeah, it was mostly my grandmother on my father's side. And then I just started playing the piano when I was pretty young. I joined the band. I played clarinet, and I played bass clarinet. And then I switched to the baritone horn for a while because they needed somebody to play it. So I liked tasting a lot of different flavors.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
what was it? What kind of dream did you have for your life at that point? Like, what did your parents do? Were they professionals or?
They owned movie theaters.
Awesome.
Yep. That was a fun way to grow up.
Wow, that's cool. But I bet your
My
friends
dad
loved hanging
had-
out with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad had a drive-in theater and an indoor theater.
Nice. So you grew up going to the movies like crazy.
Yes, and seeing them repeatedly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what was the dream sort of like? What did you see your life like then, like when you were a teenager?
I wasn't sure. I felt like I was a writer, and I felt like I was a performer because I'd done a little bit of that when I was growing up. My dad wanted me to be a flight attendant. That was his big dream for me. He was from a different era. So for a while I went with that because, so
That was
That
a
didn't
cool,
work
that was a
out.
really cool job at one point though. Like
yes, it seemed
kind of
glamorous.
Yeah, glamorous. You
Right.
traveled and
Right.
yeah.
Right. So I actually had a lot of anxiety about the future because I didn't have a clear plan. I didn't know where I was going to land or fit in. There was no kind of artistic template anywhere that I could touch. It was all famous people far away.
Right.
And so I didn't think you could be an artist and make a living. So I went to college and majored in English, not knowing what I would do, but I just felt like I'm a writer. I'll major in English.
Right.
And
Where'd you go to college?
Michigan State University.
How was that?
Oh, it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was tough because I went to this little residential college, which was filled with intellectuals. I chose it because they had pass, no credit. You couldn't fail, and I was so. I had such low self-esteem when it came to intelligence. I thought that I wasn't very smart, and I had trouble reading. So I thought, well, I'm going to have a hard time in college probably. So I picked this residential college within Michigan State University where they didn't have grades.
Okay.
And so I was around very well-read people. Like I'd never heard of Jean-Paul Sartre. In my high school, nobody had ever heard of anyone, or Camus. We just
Right.
they didn't get into Portland, Michigan. Those people.
Yeah.
Shakespeare we heard of, but that was about it. So here I was, and I was really not with my people, but those were the people I wanted to be because I really was very curious and loved all kinds of language and philosophy. I really liked philosophy, but I was kind of made fun of for that when in high school.
So what was your social group then when you were in college? I feel bad now. I want to give you a hug.
In college,
Were you
I
kind
had
of
a
a
boyfriend.
wallflower? Oh, you did?
I did. Yeah, I was very uncomfortable in groups. Yeah, because I didn't get their references, and I really wanted to. But because I was such a good writer, I could fool my professors. Like I had one professor who said, "Write." I don't know what the assignment was, but we were supposed to write one version as though we were Ernest Hemingway and one version as though we were F. Scott Fitzgerald. So I wrote this thing, and I'd read enough of the books to get their style, book style. And maybe it goes back to what you're saying, how some of us can absorb things really well, right?
Right.
So able to mimic their styles. And the teacher, I hadn't finished the books though. I had this reading issue. So I could only get through like the first quarter of the books. But boy, that professor read my writing to the class and said, I don't think there could have been a better imitation or a better reflection of Fitzgerald, like, and I felt, oh my God, I fooled him.
So are you like a genius with a weird learning disability? Is that what was the problem with reading? Because obviously you are, there's nobody that could write these songs that isn't a fucking brilliant mind,
Well, just, I always had trouble concentrating. So I don't know if I was undiagnosed ADD or something, but,
do you still?
Yeah, I'm better. I'm better. But it is still an effort.
Yeah.
Sadly. Yeah.
I wonder what that is. Have you ever figured out, like, have they told you? Like what?
No.
Oh.
I haven't been tested, but no. I can't, I have to get really absorbed in something to like really read it all the way.
Yeah. How do you do with social media then? Does that work out for you? Because it's all quick. Are you like a TikTok addict?
I can do it. It's kind of a necessity. Some people seem to enjoy it. And every now and then I enjoy it if it's like play. But, it's self-promotion. It's just self-promotion. So
it seems weird because we come from an era where going around doing that, you were an asshole. You know
I
what
know.
I mean? Yeah.
I know.
If someone asked you how you were doing and you're like, I'm crushing it, people would be like, shut up, dude.
I know.
Yeah.
It was cooler. And it's also like musicians didn't talk about having careers. That was a bad word. You were an artist. You have a career. That's like a business person.
Yeah.
So
isn't that funny? Like the whole sellout idea, like that's the best thing that can happen to you at this point is like getting in a Nike commercial. And I remember like being in high school and Revolution was in a Nike commercial and it was like the end of the world. It was like, this is the most sacrilegious thing to take John Lennon's music and put it with his shoe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What a weird thing.
It was beyond uncool.
Yeah. I think there should be a separation between, there needs to be some connection with art and commerce, but now it seems like they are just so intermeshed that it's a little weird.
That's why I want to start this trend to restricting my audience.
The dream of having the coolest audience in the world. I don't think that's only the Velvet Underground.
Right. Not just anyone can buy a ticket to this show. You
like
must be screened.
It's like a velvet rope. You get turned away at the show.
It's the opposite of inclusive. It's exclusive. It is.
So wait. So after college, you moved to New York?
Yep. I got a job at a book publishing company.
Doing what?
Like technical books. Well, I was just an assistant initially, and then I got into marketing, and then I started. I joined a band. I answered an ad in the Village Voice, and I got into this band, and we started performing. And then there was a manager who offered a contract, so I found a lawyer, and the lawyer said to me, you really ought to be writing songs. That's where the money is in music. That's, and he said, and I was like, well, I don't care about money. I just want to make music, So he said, I dare you to write a hit song. So I like a dare. So I wrote some songs. I wrote these 4 songs, and I ended up with a publishing deal with Universal Music because the lawyer sent them. Apparently they were okay. And one of those songs was called "Everywhere I Go," which Amy Grant recorded.
Yeah.
So, What was the question? I moved to New York. Right.
So,
Right. So
what was that like? Okay, so you got a publishing. Did you get like a whole like? Was it a co-publishing deal, and you got an advance enough to live, or did you still work at the book publishing company and write songs?
It wasn't quite enough to live. I lived at the book. I lived at the book publishing company for a while.
Yeah.
But eventually was able to do it full time.
Were you part of any kind of scene? Like, was there was Jules Shear running around and stuff? Like, did you know all those guys up there?
Yeah, I knew Jules. We never wrote together, but his manager and my lawyer were good friends. So I met Jules a bunch of times.
He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah.
I put him up there with Dylan. I really do. I really put him up there.
Yeah.
There's some people that laugh at me when I say that, but I'm dead serious. I think he's a genius, like super genius.
I agree.
Yeah.
That sort of, here's the reality, the one we all agree on, and I'm just going to go and look at it from over here.
Yeah.
Right.
He uses weird words and he makes them poetic, like words you'd never think to put in that are not musical. He makes them musical.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because the melody he puts with it makes it all just soar. Right.
Yeah. He's a weird singer and a weird guitar. Everything he is so unique. I think maybe that's what it is that attracts me to his music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. So, so you were running around. Were you playing? Like, were you playing places out there then? And
not too much at that point. Oh, I know what happened. So I actually put out a dance record in the early 90s under the Kortes with a Z. That's my first record. It's called Put Your Body On. It's a wonderful, it's a dance single, a 12-inch dance single. But so that was just a little blip. So then I got married to Eric Roscoe-Amble. We were living in the East Village. And I was still doing a lot of songwriting, and I was really a frustrated artist. I really did want to perform. I ran into a friend one night. Well, actually, I read Billboard magazine. I read an article by Sinead O'Connor, by Timothy White, who was my first big champion.
Yeah, I like that guy.
And he was interviewing Sinead O'Connor, and she said in this article, so this, I don't know, mid 90s or something. So she said, ask God for what you want and he'll give it to you. Something like that. Or just ask God for what you want. And I thought, I want to perform. Anyway, later that day, I was walking up Avenue A and I saw Sinead O'Connor. I didn't talk to her, but I just saw her. And that night, I ran into a friend at this club called Brownies on Avenue A. And in that era, one of the hippest places you could play was called Shanae.
Oh yeah. Where Jeff Buckley did that record from there.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So that night I ran into an old friend named Kate Hyman, who was going out at the time with the guy who ran Shanae. And she introduced me to him and she said, "Oh, you should play at Shanae." So this is the day I read the Sinead O'Connor article, ask God. I say, I want to perform. I see Sinead. I ran into an old friend. I meet the guy who booked Sinead. So then I went there the next day and I got a gig. And that's when I started performing.
Wow.
And that's when I think I really found my voice. I found my physical voice more than from performing live.
Yeah. Did you have a weekly gig or something?
No, I probably played once a month for a while.
Yeah.
And that led to my first real album, which was just 8 songs. It was really a sampler. Live to 2 tracks.
Oh, really?
All live to, it was Eric's idea. He said, because he'd heard a lot of my songwriting demos. Yeah. And when he saw me live, he said, I feel like I'd never really heard your voice. Let's go into the studio and do what you do live. Huh. So I went in with my accordion player. At that point, I was just doing trio with an accordion player and a guitar player and me on some percussion. I wasn't even playing guitar yet. So I got a bass and drums, and we went into the studio. Tony Shanahan, who's been playing with Patti Smith for years, and Graham Hawthorne, and Andy York, who's been playing with Mellencamp for years, and my accordion player, a guy named Joe Chiafalo. We went into the
amazing,
studio.
by the way. Sorry.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Talk about somebody who should be famous. Oh, my God. Incredible. Anyway, so we recorded live to 2-track.
How cool.
And that, really humble little venture ended up, getting played on a lot of radio stations. It got the attention of Timothy White, who said it was one of his top 10. It was his number 4 album of 1997.
Wow. Did you know him? He lived in New York, didn't he?
Yeah, well, I met him after he started writing about me. I did meet him because he came to the Lakeside Lounge, which we owned for several years. He came there to a record release.
I got to meet him once. He was a really nice guy. It was sad when he passed. He was a really nice cat. Like he didn't, and he was older too. It was weird. I think he liked my band.
Yeah, he's been around pardon me?
I said, I think he liked my band. I mean, or he was just really polite. And I can't remember if what they wrote about us was like, just like a matter of fact, or if there was some kind of oh, this is really good. You know how sometimes there's no, it's like, oh, this is a thing happening. They're coming out. Here they go. You know what I mean?
No emotion.
Yeah. But anyway,
no discernible.
Sorry. Yeah. So in that time, when you had a couple songs that were cut by the Pointer Sisters.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. That was a little bit earlier before I was performing. Yeah. Yeah. It was great.
So were you were you getting a good steady publishing income? I mean, because Amy Grant, that's around the time when Amy Grant really blew up, I think, right? Didn't she?
It was right before her. It was her. Yeah, that's the album before Baby Baby.
Okay.
That I was on. Yeah. I mean, not quite enough. And then I started doing some session singing. I sang some commercials. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any we'd know?
Yeah.
But you don't want to say?
The touch, the feel of cotton.
That was you?
Sabbath of our lives. Yeah, for quite a while.
Yes.
Speaking of commercials, right, here we go. Full circle.
Well, to me, there's something a little bit like that song was written for a commercial, and then that commercial, and they hired a singer. That's normal. But when you take someone's art, there's a fine line in my mind.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know what I mean.
It's and the sentiment towards all that has changed.
Yeah. So when you did that Dylan album, which is a track for track cover of Blood on the Tracks, why did you do that? Okay,
so the Arlene Grocery, I don't know if they still have it, but they had for quite a long time this thing called Classic Album Night, and they would pick 3 albums, and then they would get 3 bands to do, the albums.
Right.
So I was sitting in the living room one day, and Eric was on the phone with his friend Chris Gray, who at the time had a band called Martin's Folly, and they were asked to perform on this Classic Album Night. They were going to do After the Gold Rush, I think. Yeah, they were doing After the Gold Rush. Somebody else was doing, George Gilmore was doing the band's Brown album, and they wanted someone to do Blood on the Tracks, but nobody would do it. And they were asking Eric if he wanted to do it, and he was going to be out of town. So he said to me, "Hey, you want to do Blood on the Tracks at Arlene Grocery?" And I said, "Yeah, it's my favorite album." So I innocently, stupidly, naively, "Yeah, sure, I'll sing that whole album. What's the big deal?" So then I started rehearsing it, and I was like, "Uh-oh, I don't know all these songs quite as well as I thought. Oh, they're really long.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, I don't." how am I going to do this without imitating him? Like, there's no reason for anyone else to sing these songs. They're just going to imitate Dylan, right? So I went to the phone and I picked it up, and I was going to call and cancel. I can't. And then something in me went, no, I'm not a quitter. I'm not a quitter. And I put the receiver down. So I kept practicing, and I got together with Andy York, to rehearse. And Andy, who's always nothing but, encouraging and towards me, said, just keep practicing. And I was like, oh no, I'm really going to stop. This is going to, I have to cancel. So once again, I went to my phone and picked it up to call. Once again, said, no, I'm not a quitter. So I just kept singing the songs and just found a way, just my voice started to come through, but I didn't want to change his phrasing and I didn't want to change the pronouns. But it ended up just feeling right. And so we did one rehearsal before the show, a few days before the show. And I was like, oh, wait, there's harmonica. So I picked up some harmonicas and, I'll play the harmonica parts. So the night before that show, I ran into a friend of mine who said, you're going to record it, right? And I said, no, I'm going to suck. I'm not recording it. And he said, you got to record it, Mary Lee. It's Dylan. So the next night when I was on my way to the club, leaving my house, this is in the DAT era.
Right. Yeah.
So I was looking for, it was 2001, looking for DAT tapes. I didn't have any blank DATs, but I had some cassettes. So do you edit this? Because this is a long story. Maybe I should shorten it.
No, it's the long stories that give the show its magic.
Okay. So I grabbed a cassette on my way out the door. Get to the club. I hand the sound man a cassette before we go on stage and said, will you record this? He said, sure. So he recorded the show. And at the end of the night, he gave me my cassette. So I didn't actually listen to it for a while. I had lunch with Amy Rigby one day. Said, I had a record deal, and then I didn't have a record deal at the time. I wasn't sure about what I was going to do for my next record. And she said, well, didn't your Blood on the Tracks thing go really well? Like, everybody was talking about the show. Like, who dares to sing those songs, And I had just naively said, I'll do it because I loved them. Anyway, so she said, why don't you go in the studio and record Blood on the Tracks? You could probably do it in a day. So I called Brad Albetta, my bass player, and said, I'm thinking about recording Blood on the Tracks. And he said, well, wasn't it really the live thing that was so cool about that? So then I got out the cassette and listened to it. And I'm listening all the way through side one of the cassette. But gosh, this sounds really good. You can tell how much fun we're having. Then I flipped it over, and the first song was Meet Me in the Morning. But between the time that the sound man flipped the cassette over, took it out and flipped it over and hit play or hit record, we were about 2 verses into the song.
Yeah.
So we were missing the beginning of Meet Me in the Morning. So I said, well, there goes that idea. I can't put this out. So I'm bemoaning this in a rehearsal one day. And my drummer said, oh, I was running a Discman the whole time back by the drums. So he gave me that. So we took his beginning and just deftly, I had a great engineer working on it, and he melded it together. So if you listen to that, you'll hear the beginning of Meet Me in the Morning. It's mostly kick drum. And but that was a real magical experience. That and then Dylan ended up putting You're a Big Girl Now on his website for about a year. And it got 4 stars in Rolling Stone and led to another record deal and this and that. So it was an incredible adventure.
So weird, those things, like when, as hard as you try in your career to make something happen, your husband having to go out of town.
Right. An accident
is like
of
a
fate.
career changer.
A twist of fate, yeah.
Twist of fate.
But here's another wonderful little anecdote on that particular journey. Was it was after the show, before it got officially released, I was pressing up CDs just to sell at shows so I could have something new to sell of the Blood on the Tracks performance. And it hit me one day, oh my God, I'm selling Bob Dylan songs. I probably need permission.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
You think nobody knows. You think nobody knows that you're here,
Right.
but actually, some people do know you're here.
Yeah.
So I call Special Rider Music, and I ask them, "Do you publish the Blood on the Track songs now? Is it still Ram's Horn Music, or is Ram's Horn Music part of you?" And they said, "Yeah, we published the Blood on the Track songs." And they said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I performed it a couple months ago, and it got recorded, and I'd really like to be able to sell it because it's really good." And they said, "Is this Mary Lee?"
Wow.
They knew.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they knew. So word had gotten out, and
That's a great problem to have, though. That's one
Right?
of those, yeah.
so they've been very good to me.
So then what? Okay, so then you go and you make another record for a label, and you tour. And
Yeah,
you get
right. That's when the Joe Jackson.
Okay. And was that good? I mean, did you get what made you go work at the UN? Because now I'm working my way back to just that when you
Okay.
mentioned that earlier.
That was several years after all of that.
Well, okay, so in those years, like what kind of happened during that time?
So then I put out, after Blood on the Tracks, which was put out by Bar None Records, they put out my next album, 700 Miles.
And they were doing really well at that time, bar none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I toured around that, and that was all great, and it got pretty stunning reviews. And, but, I couldn't buy a house from it or anything. So then things ended with Bar None, and then I was, oh my God. Then I don't think I'm going to name names, but I had a record deal with like my dream situation. And then it fell apart because the guy who was signing me left the label.
Oh, that's
So
a
then
crappy story. I hate that.
Yeah. So then I made a record on my own, which came out on 30 Tigers, and did some touring and a lot of touring in England. And I had a lot of nice support from the BBC over there. But it was, kind of ravaging in some ways, emotionally and financially and all that. And so I came home and I was like, I didn't have any session work anymore because I've been touring and
Right.
off people's minds. So I really had no livelihood. And I thought, well, something will happen. But I've got all this time on my hands now. Why don't I do some of those New York City things that you don't do when you live here? I'm going to take that tour of the UN. I've always wanted to do that. So I remember it was a Tuesday afternoon. I got on the First Avenue bus and rode up to 42nd Street, got out, went to the visitor's entrance, bought my ticket, and I was waiting for the tour to start. And at that point, they had this old black and white film on a loop with all these images of the origins of the UN, in World War II and FDR and Eleanor Roosevelt, Stalin, and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there watching this thing over and over and over. And I kid you not, I fell into some kind of spell, and this happened. I must work for the United Nations. I must work for the United Nations. I just got into this fever. I mean, I was looking for my own kind of peace and security, I think. And so I went to work on international peace and security. But anyway, so I got a job there, and that's a whole other funny story, but that's very long. And so while I was there, I continued to work on Beulah and perform, and had a good time. And I joined the choir, and I was president of the UN Singers for a while, and got me to Asia. I'd never been to Asia.
That's
We
cool.
toured a bit. Yeah.
There's a thing, the UN Singers is a thing?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It started 2 years after the UN started, I think, in 1947 or something.
That's
The
weird.
choir was
I mean, that's weird stuff. As a civilian, you'd never know. I mean, how would I, unless I met you, I probably
Right.
would never know that in my life. That's insane.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
cool.
Really cool. It was great.
All I think of is, like, whenever I think of the UN, I just think of the name Kofi Annan. I don't know who that is. Was he the president of the
It was
UN?
the Secretary General.
Okay. It's like, I know a name associated with it, but I have no idea why. I watched
Now
the
you
news.
do.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, it's one of those names that people like to say.
yeah. I think
Because
that's
there was,
why.
Is it Kofi or Coffee?
Were you
Kofi
there?
Annan.
Were there after him or
After him.
after him? Yeah, because
After.
he was in the time of like the Bush, the beginning of the Iraq War and stuff.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. What a fascinating life you've led so far.
Yes, thank you for this so far. Well, I think about it and think, well, maybe if I had just been focusing on music the whole time, maybe I'd have a slightly larger audience. But but I remember when I was about 20, 21, thinking about looking at what people do with their lives, and they pick a thing and then they just do that thing. And I always felt like I don't want to do just one thing.
Yeah.
I want to do a lot of things. So in that sense,
Hey.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dreamful.
There's one thing we didn't talk about, and I didn't read it, but I would actually like to. You wrote a book called Dreaming of Dylan, 115 Dreams About Bob.
Yeah.
Did that come from when you were doing the Blood on the Tracks thing, or do you just literally always dreaming about Bob Dylan?
It was, I've been dreaming about Bob Dylan ever since I started making music. And I would have these dreams. I had this one recurring dream of him where we meet in this little restaurant in the West Village. We're sitting there. There's, brick walls and candlelight but there's no food. We don't order any food. And he says three things to me. He says, Mary Lee, I think you're great. I love your music. Don't ever quit. So I would wake up from this dream feeling like Bob Dylan loves me, loves my music, tells me to never give up. Right. So I would have this dream, I don't know, once or twice a year, and other dreams too of Dylan. And it hit me one day, I can't be the only person dreaming of Bob Dylan. It's like an archetype, right? So wouldn't it be an interesting book, People's Dreams of Bob Dylan? So I started posting about it, and I went on Expecting Rain, and said I'm collecting people's dreams of Bob Dylan, and there you have it. It turned into a book.
Wow,
the
that's
dream came.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's really awesome. So this record is going to come out on vinyl, and then later on this year it'll come out on streaming services. You're planning on doing some shows, but not really like a full tour yet.
There's not planned at this time, but there might be one in the fall. So.
Do you like touring? Because you said that earlier. You said it was taking a toll on you emotionally and all that stuff. Well,
I love performing,
right?
So and I've had a great time on some tours, but the last one was really hard. So that's the one where I went to the UN afterwards. But,
right. What made it hard? If you don't mind talking about it.
It was expensive and
yeah. I hate those.
And I tried to perform as much as I possibly could, so I packed in a lot of shows and just didn't get the return I wanted.
Right.
So,
that's like fucking 95% of people that go out on tour. I mean, literally,
right.
It's not.
Normal.
It's very,
right.
very hard. That's why they give you tour support at the label, like when you first get signed, because it's costing somebody money to be out there.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
and I also I wanted to do some other things as well. So.
Sure. I mean, there are some times in life I actually like this. I'm 54, and I've been on the road since I was 20. And so earlier last year, my grandma is real old and we're real close, and she had a close call, it was almost over, but then she came back. And I had just gotten a dog, and with this girl, and the girlfriend had broken up with me, but then I got the dog sole custody, and I got offered kind of a cool tour, but I actually passed on it. I couldn't believe, I was really shocked. I was like, I don't want to be in Des Moines in a fucking whatever place, backstage, and my grandma dies and I have to stay out here for another fucking 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's weird. It's weird like that, the way that life sort of like creeps in, because it is fun touring, but it does after a while, like that you're getting paid for everything except for the performance, right? You're getting paid
Right.
for the 23 hours a day that suck.
Right. Well, and that can be fun too. I mean, like
Sure.
riding around with Conrad is a blast.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of great, like the Hang was unbelievable kind of tours. But I've also had
Right,
like weird
right.
tours where a guy was on heroin and like, stealing ashtrays
Mm-hmm.
from people and stuff. It was weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always had like the audiences have always been great, but I always wanted more, you know.
Yeah. Well, Mary Lee, this record is just gorgeous. Like, it's wonderful to listen to. It's a high concept, and you just really, I mean, you made a tremendous work of art.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much, and especially coming from you, because I know you really listen with
Yeah. Thank you.
informed ears and
With
an informed soul.
ears. Yeah. Well, there's 2 songs available that people can hear on streaming services and see the videos on YouTube. Both gorgeous. The Green Sand video is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It was
gorgeous
fun to
video.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they can find you at Mary Lee. It's MaryLeeKortes.com, right?
Yeah, or MaryLee'sCorvette.com.
Okay. They both go to the same
Both.
place.
Yeah.
One last question. What made this Mary Lee Kortes as opposed to Mary Lee and Mary Lee's Corvette?
Well, my manager thought I should do that. Years ago, my manager at the time said that he thought that this project should be Mary Lee Kortes. And I think because there's a whole story that I wrote, it's kind of a different animal, and it's just a different spot.
Yeah.
So,
All right. I get that. Well, I hope that we should stay in touch. I'm following you on Instagram. I'll let you guys, your people, know when this all comes out, but I'd love to meet you sometime if you're ever down in Austin playing or when I'm up in
that
New York.
would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Likewise,
And please tell Conrad that I said hello.
I shall.
And that I'm really just blown away with what an amazing drummer he's become. And also, I'm a huge fan of your husband, or his work. Like, finding out who that, I was like, oh shit. I went back and like, I was like, shit, he did those records? Damn.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Quite a body.
Great body of work.
Yeah.
So, well, it was great meeting you. And I'll
You
let
too,
you,
Johnny. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll let you know when this drops. And thank you so much for the lovely conversation. And I look forward to meeting you in
Likewise.
person someday.
And I appreciate your reaction to the record so much.
Oh, thank you, man. Well, you made a beautiful record. More people will react.
I
The more
agree.
people that hear it. This record
Great.
drops on April 15th in a physical form called vinyl.
April 22nd.
April 22nd. Shoot, sorry, it was April 15th.
They had changed. I think originally, it was April 15th. But
Okay. It was. All right. April 22nd, Record Store Day special. Available in record stores in vinyl form until October when it goes on the streaming services. So if you have a record player, get it.
get it.
All right. Great meeting you.
Thank you.
Take
Great
care.
meeting you, Johnny.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Mary Lee Kortes, her album, Will Anybody Know That I Was Here? The songs of Beulah Rowley comes out April 22nd as a Record Store Day exclusive on vinyl only. Get out there to your record store and pick one up if you're in the vinyl game. If not, you will have to wait till October till it drops on the streaming services. You can go listen to Green Sand and the song you're hearing now, or just heard Born a Happy Girl, wherever it is you stream it and download music. All right? MaryLeeKortes.com is where you'll find her. I really enjoyed getting to talk to her. I hope we stay friends for a long, long time. Thanks for doing the show, Mary Lee. You're awesome. Hey, gang, don't forget, when you're out there checking out MaryLeeKortes.com, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you find podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Overcast, Stitcher, anywhere. New shows every Tuesday and every Friday. Also, the occasional Saturday night from the vault. Check it out. All right? Thanks so much for listening to the show. I hope you guys have a great weekend, whatever it is you're doing this weekend. Let's get down.
Kill my only child. The devil drove me dark and wild, but she escaped. Boy,